Hi, and welcome to Sinatra CRUD app episode 5. In this episode, we're going to be implementing two more actions, the edit and the update action. Just like before, I have pre-written a lot of HTML, and you may notice that the edit view is very, very similar to the new view. There's only one difference here, and that is this underscore method field. And essentially, the way that most browsers are implemented, they don't actually support anything but get and post. And so for us to support the other HTTP verbs, this is a bit of a workaround. And Sinatra is a rack-based app, just like Rails is. And the convention they use is to have this hidden field called underscore method that will tell the rack middleware exactly what method should be used, in this case, patch, which will run our patch context ID. The other difference is we are going to need an actual ID in here, like a 12. So everything from here to here is the same between new and edit. There's no difference. So what I'm going to do is take that and create a partial inside contacts. So a new file, and I'm going to call it formfields.erb. And it's going to contain all the things that are the same between edit and new. And so what I can do, instead of having all of this here and duplicate it in both places, is I can use ERB to interpolate, calling ERB, and this time we want to call contacts / form fields, and we have to give this an option, and the one that we need to give it is called layout false, and we'll close out our ERB here. And the reason that we need to do that is that in all of our other views, this layout file is also being rendered that sets up our HTML headers, the body, and then yield is where our actual views are. And in this case, that's already been done when we call edit, so we don't need it to be called again when we render the contacts form fields. And so we can take this same line of code, and in the new, we can replace all of this duplicated code with this call. And that way, we're leveraging the exact same code here, and then only the things that are specific to new and the things that are specific to edit end up here. Now that we've changed something about the new action, we want to double check that we haven't broken anything. So we can come back here, we can go to new, and we'll create a new contact to make sure that all of this is still working. So I'll go ahead and create that contact. And it worked. So that's what's known as regression testing. It means you've changed something, and something that used to work, you want to make sure it's still working. So now that we've confirmed that, we can focus on our edit action. So let's say that we want to edit our new contact named John. The path, we just append edit, so it's /contacts and then their ID and then edit. And I haven't updated my controller action yet, so I will need to do that. So there are two updates that I need to make here. One is to update the edit action, remove the placeholder, and instead we're going to render our new edit page. And here I left in this hard-coded value. And what we need to do here instead is to use ERB interpolation to get the contact that we're looking for based on the ID that we have here. So in this case, it's just going to be at contact.id. And this means that we're going to need an at contact instance variable set up in our action. And the good news is this is very similar to what we did in the show action here, where we find it by params ID. So we can do the exact same thing here, and then we'll have an at contact available to us based on the URL. and then that will be placed into the form to make sure that we go to the right place when we call the update action. So I'll save both of these files, and then we'll refresh this page. And now we have our edit form here. And it looks a lot like the new form. I'm just gonna go in to double check that it's a little bit different. And here we have that hidden method, or that hidden input called underscore method, and we have the individual ID here. But you'll notice that these fields are empty, and that can be pretty annoying as an end user, having to retype everything that was involved in a contact before instead of updating what is there. And so the way that we fix that is, since we have the contact that we're dealing with in an instance variable, we can do this same interpolation for the different fields. So we'll move over to our form fields partial, which is where they're being rendered. And what we're gonna do here is we add another attribute here called value, and we interpolate the correct attributes for our contact. So in this case, first name, and then we'll do the same thing with the other fields as well. Last name here. And finally, email here. Okay, so we save that, and then we'll refresh this page. And now all of our fields are pre-filled with the actual contact details. So if we wanted to make an update, we would come in here and say .org and submit. I'm not going to do that yet because we have not implemented our update action, which is what this is going to hit. So before I move on, I want to test the new action because we've changed the form fields and the new action relies on that. So again, I'm doing regression testing where I make sure something that was working before is still working since I've touched that code. So I'm going to go directly to new, and what we're going to see is that now there's an error, undefined method first name for nil class, because I added this @contact.firstname, and that's available in the edit action, but it is not available in the new action. And so there's a simple fix for this, luckily. All we need to do is make an empty contact available, and that will fix our issue here. Because it doesn't matter that first name is empty. What matters is that @contact has a contact model in that instance variable. So I'll make that change, and then we'll refresh this page and make sure that it's still working. Now it's working and everything's blank because all I did was initialize an empty contact. Now that we know the new action is working again, we can go back and revisit with our edit and update actions. Now we're using underscore method with a value of patch, which means that this is going to hit the patch route here. You'll see this matches the verb, and then up here /contact ID, that matches the path that we see here. So we're gonna remove this placeholder, and some of the things that we're doing here are gonna be similar. Just like for show and edit, we're going to need to get a particular contact. And just like create, we're gonna use the params to update this contact. So I'm just gonna take part of this code and move it down here. So we already have a contact, and we will call the update method on that, and we'll send it those params. And we'll do a puts params so we can see what those look like. And since this is not a GET request, on success, we're gonna wanna redirect just like we did in the create action. We're gonna do it a little differently this time though. Instead of redirecting to the index page, we're going to redirect to the show page for the contact that we just updated. And in order to do that, we're gonna just use Ruby string interpolation, and we just need this particular contact, their ID, and that should take us to the right place. So I'll go ahead and save this, and then we'll come back over here and we will edit the new contact that we created previously. So we'll wait for that to load, and we'll change this to just a .NET and see what happens. And you'll see it still says create contact down here. We'll want to make a change so it says update contact to differentiate it from the new form. We'll do that closer to the end of the episode, but it's still going to hit the update action. So I'll click this, and if it's successful, it'll redirect us, and we'll have the update here. So let's take a look at what happened in the log. So we can see here are the params that we have that we care about. So the underscore method was patched. That got us to the correct route. And then here's our contact, just like in the create action. And we have first name, last name, and the email is different. And it makes an update call to the database here. And it just changes the email. It's detected that there was actually no change to the first name and last name. And so it just makes the change where it's applicable. And then after that patch, there was a redirect to get contacts/15. So now that we have the update action working, there's just a few things that we're going to do to clean up before we close out the episode. And one of the things we looked at before, we're going to need to move this create contact out of the shared fields because we don't want it to say create contact on the edit action. We only want it to say it on the new action. So we'll put this back as is here. So it still says create contact for new. And then under edit, it's going to be very similar. We're just going to change it to say update contact to make for a better user interface there. The other thing that we're going to do is a quick in-file refactor because we want patch and put to do the same thing. And if we want to support both verbs, we can do that. We just don't want to duplicate all that code. So I'm just going to create a method called update contact. And all the things that we did here, we're just going to move into this method. And then when patch is called, we will update a contact. And when put is called, we will also update a contact. So these two are going to share the same code that we see up here so that we know if we make changes here, it will apply to both HTTP verbs. Now with those small changes made, we can close out our episode. And just like we do for all of our episodes, we'll go ahead and commit our changes. So we'll see that we made some changes here. I made an update to the gem file lock for Sinatra. Don't worry too much about that. But we've edited our controller, we've modified one of our views, and we've added 2 new views. So we can add all of those changes and then commit them. Now with episode 5 complete, we have an almost fully working Sinatra CRUD app implementing all the RESTful routes. We can do everything but delete at this point. So we've made some pretty good progress. And in the remainder of this series, you'll see how to implement delete and then how to add some more some error handling for a more robust application. So we'll see you next time.